Hello and welcome. This is Rooflemonger and my friends. We are now experiencing the first ever real balance patch for Street Fighter 6. Now, yes, there's timestamps, all that kind of stuff. Before you skip ahead, there's a couple important things to talk about. One, yes, it is cool that I provide timestamps on larger videos so you can skip to wherever you want. That's really cool. Man, I should leave a like for that. Yes, I agree. Now, that said, this is not, I repeat, not the Season 2 patch. This is a get-you-by patch, for a lack of a better term. There's balance changes here. Some of the changes are kind of big, but this is not the big one. That'll happen some months into the future, and I'm sure it'll be a much bigger deal with this, with also significant system changes, as well as character balance changes. Also, there is changes that are not balance changes that are not in the patch notes. So, of course, as usual, if you check the video description, you can find a link to the patch notes, and it'll all be there. But I want to highlight a few things that are not in the patch notes that are pretty cool. So, one very big change here is just online play, matchmaking. You may notice here, there's a new option called Search Range. So, Search Range is basically, you know, your region, right? So like me in Canada, I'd be mostly playing people in like North America, East Coast. Less so, say, people in China, because that's how that works, right? And one complaint over the life of the game has been, you know, I only play XYZ many people, especially at higher ranks, and I wish I could play a wider range, and now you absolutely can. We have limited, we have expanded, and worldwide. So if you want to take your matches truly online worldwide, now you can. I have always said many times over the months that Street Fighter 6's netcode is amazing. I think we all know that. We all agree, right? And I've stated that they need to let their netcode do the heavy lifting, right? For myself, in rural nowhere, Ontario, Canada, I played against people in Tokyo, Japan, and it was great. Like, your netcode is truly first class, right? Let it work for you. And now you can. So if you're in a region with not a great player base, you know, not everyone lives in, you know, Europe or the States, right? So if you're in a region without a great player base, now the netcode can do the heavy lifting for you, and you can get truly worldwide experience playing online. And therefore, there should never be any issue having a wide variety of people to play at and a wide variety of skill levels. So this is truly fantastic. Now, obviously, your connection could be subject to, you know, issues when you're playing halfway across the planet. That's just how it works. So if you don't want that, you don't have to. But now if you do, the option is there. So fantastic change. And obviously we have Ed, we have the new stage, as you would expect, but also some other new shop items. So if you're looking for more customization for, you know, your pre-match fights here, just, you know, the cool little icons, we got a whole new slew, one for every character in the game. So for some people, it might not be a big deal, but I like this stuff. There should be more stuff like this, more customization, more cool things. So that said, now let's talk about the actual balance changes. So really quick before we start, I do want to mention a few things. One, that there are, you know, obviously a bunch of bug fixes and all that. Not every bug fix really merits mentioning, so I'm not going to mention all those, because then we'll just blow out the video. Two, not every character has changes. In fact, quite a few characters do not have changes at all. And these include, you know, the bottom tier characters, like say like Lily or Honda, you would expect to get buffs. Not happening. They got to wait for the proper Season 2 patch. They put out a mission statement specifically here. They're looking to improve characters that could not fully express their individual potential. So that doesn't necessarily mean you're bottom tier, because they didn't get nothing, right? Just looking to add some more identity. Two, they're looking to improve techniques that were clearly difficult to use. Basically, these are some of the quality of life changes that we'll go through throughout the video here. And also to weaken elements that control the opponent's actions too severely. And that's going to be a lot of the nerfs that you're going to see. So just to note that. Now let's start with Luke. So Luke, I guess the big one out of the gate. A lot of people were, you know, wondering about this. Crouch medium punch has been nerfed. Not as much as you would think, honestly, but definitely nerfed. So to go through it quickly here, the move itself has 3 more frames of recovery when it whiffs. So you can see the blue frames here, the recovery frames. So it is now at 17 frames when it whiffs. Now, to add to that, on frames 6 through 24 specifically, the hurt box on his feet, his little toes here, those are expanded. So basically, as he's attacking, it is easier to hit his feet. So if you got like, you know, crouch medium kick or something, easier at very least to trade with, if not outright beat him. And the size of the arm's hurt box, so the part that you can hit it, from frame 19 onward, and keep in mind we have more recovery frames as well, right? It is now easier to hit the arm. So all the things put together, it just means if he whiffs the crouch medium punch, it is simply that much easier to punish him for it. The move's not crippled or nothing. It's still really good. Don't get me wrong on any of this, right? It just means, you know, in whiff punish wars, it's just simply easier to deal with it, you know. Or if you're in that situation where, like, you know, you're, you know, doing mediums or lights or whatever and you're buffering a special, it'll be that much easier to catch as well. So it's a little bit worse, yes, but is it the end of the world? No, but it's a very, very fair nerf. Another nerf is Air Flash Knuckle, and this is specifically the regular version, not the held version. The held version is unchanged. So if the move does not connect when you do it at the peak of the jump, the trajectory is different. And also, if you do it at the peak of the jump and you whiff, there is more landing recovery. So I'll do it here and hold up as soon as I hit the ground. So that's pretty significant, right? So no getting out of jail or whatever. So basically, if you're using this as like a get out of jail tool, since you have just that much more landing recovery, it's not going to be as good. And once again, the charged version completely unchanged. That's only for the regular uncharged version. And specifically for the level 1 version of a super here, so the first 5 frames, which are also the invulnerability frames, right? The partial invulnerability frames, the entire size of the body hurt box has been increased. So basically in scenarios where like you're just doing to like bypass something, that, you know, you shouldn't be able to invincible past, well, now you're going to get hit. So is Luke one of the best characters in the game still? You better believe it. This patch might condense the tier list a little bit, but like the overall tier list is not going to go through any seismic changes. The good characters are still good, and the bad characters are still, for the most part, going to be bad, right? We're going to have to wait for Season 2 before we get to, like, you know, the big boy changes and, like, the knives come out. Jamie has some very, very interesting changes. So number 1, the forward throw. So forward throw now, well, there's 2 forward throws. There's the generic version that's always existed, right? You do it, say if you dash right after the fact, you can be +4 in the enemy's face. That's good, that's unchanged. But if you hold the throw while you're doing forward throw, then he'll take a drink. And why do this over just doing the forward throw and taking a drink normally? So if you do the forward throw and take a drink, stay near the corner, right? You're +7. Still your turn. Maybe not like directly in front of the enemy like the dash, but still your turn. Versus say if you manually take a drink after the fact, you're at -27. Pretty big difference in the numbers, right? So now basically, do you want the drink and sacrifice a bit of the pressure, or do you want to keep the pressure? You choose. Like, it's up to you, right? Whatever the right call for you, you make it. But now you have the option, right? That option did not exist before. I think for a lot of people, especially like mid-screen, let's say just screw it, take the drink, because, you know, drinks are kind of a big deal. And this gives you a very safe avenue to build more drink pressure. Also, and a nice quality of life change, is level 1 super just kind of has a damage buff across the board. So on a base level, it now does 2200 damage, used to do 2100 damage. And if you do the special version that sacrifices a bit of the move to do a drink, that does now 1850, used to do 1750. So basically 100 damage more across the board. Also, this kind of matters for the corner. If you get the hit in the corner, it'll basically eliminate the pushback that was there before. So you'll stay pretty much directly on top of the enemy. And the enemy stays down 5 frames longer than before. So now you're going to be +12. So in the corner, it's much better as a pressure tool. Once again, win, win, win. Another nice win here is the level 2. So the level 2, if you're unaware, it just automatically brings you to 4 drinks for a limited time, right? So you have like your full power Jamie offense just kind of out of the gate, but it's limited. And when the install runs out, you go back to 0 drinks. Not the case anymore. When it runs out, you go back to the drinks you had before you did the move. So if you had 1, 2, or 3 drinks, you won't just go back to 0 now. So now I think it's much more valuable, because before it was sort of a desperation play, right? Like, okay, I need the drinks now, let's go for it, and just kind of figure it out. And then you reset to the worst possible state after the fact. Now, if you had some drinks built up, you go back to the old drink value, so it just makes it better, simply put. So for Jamie, once again, this is not the Season 2 patch. This is not big sweeping changes that'll come with that patch, I'm sure. But for now, as the Get You By patch, I think Jamie's got some decent stuff out of this. I think he's going to do okay. Now, Ryu got a lot. Like, this is not necessarily like the big patch or anything, but Ryu's a pretty big winner in this patch. So let's talk something on paper that's boring, right? So solar plexus, just forward, heavy punch. He's had this forever, right? So what they did is they changed how the proximity block works on this. So now it factors in from much further away. So before, when you whiff, right, the enemy could just walk out and then they could punish or whatever. But now he can force you to block from further away. So that means you can't just as safely walk out of the entire move, and it gives him more time to connect with the move himself, right? So less walking out, he whiffs, you tap a button, you kill him, whatever, right? So this just makes the move much more valuable because you can't walk out of it the same that you used to, right? Because you're going to be forced to block from further away. So it just makes the solar plexus from, a distance that's not just point blank, much more valuable. Not a gigantic change, but a very welcome one. Now, the money changes for Ryu are all on the Hashogeki, quarter circle back, like the heavy punch, right? So these have been changed up fairly significantly. So one, just the light version. The light version is -3 on block. Okay, it used to be -4, just so you know, right? So -4, it means if it was blocked, you could like jab punish. Now you can't, so it's safe on block. Cool. And also, if you think a little bit more in depth here, wait a second. -3, what happens on burnout? In burnout, -3 becomes +1. So now, cheeky little block strings with the light Hashogeki are going to get a lot more valuable because, they can't really stick out buttons quite the same. There's actually more pushback on block specifically now when they're in burnout because they knew this was going to happen, right? But now it's a tool against people in burnout that Ryu didn't have before. So that's actually really cool. Also, since it's less negative on block, it changes pressure situations. So say we do like quick hit confirm combo in the light Tatsu, right? And if we dash right after the fact, 16 frame advantage, this is 12 frame startup. So we can have this hit meaty basically. And now it's +2 on block instead of +1 like it was before. And +2 is a magic number because that enforces the throw strike mix. Because at +2, a throw is going to beat a 4 frame button, right? So now, like his general pressure also just gets better because of this, because they can't, do some of the things they would before. So that basically means his general pressure is just better across the board, right? So safe on block, burnout pressure, regular pressure on knockdown from like a light Tatsu dash, light Hatsugeki. Like you're winning big time off this. And hey, there's more. So medium, and for the rest of these going on, the hitbox is better. Like just goes a little bit further. And also the projectile hitbox part where it clashes with fireballs is also better. So if you're just looking to destroy fireballs with it, every version except for the light is better at it. So medium, heavy, and EX. They're all good to go. Now the heavy version has always been advantage on block. But what the deal was is it kind of pushed you out, right? Like there's a pushback on block. Now the pushback on block has been reduced. So now, after say quick string, you're in throw distance. And once again, +2, right? So +2 means strike throw, right? Am I gonna throw you? Or am I gonna, tap some buttons at you? Gotta guess. And say, they know you're gonna throw them if they mash throw after the fact. That just smidge of pushback that's still there, and the +2 frame advantage does let you walk out. Like if you stay still, sure, low gravity, right? But don't stay still, right? You do that. Okay, I know you're gonna whiff throw. Boom, punish counter, do whatever combo you want to do. So basically, a blocked heavy Hashogeki is now like legitimate pressure and mix where it wasn't before. So that's a significant buff. Like, yeah, it's still slower startup. If you abuse it, they could just like parry it on reaction. Sure, whatever, right? But it's still there, and it's a great tool that he didn't have before. EX Hashogeki, much the same here. Less pushback, although you're specifically not in throw range. So if you want to do those gimmicks, gotta do the heavy specifically. But keeping that quality of life changes here. So the EX version of Denjin Hashogeki now does a lot more damage. So it used to do 600 damage and now does 1,000. So it's almost twice as much as it did before. So for, those big say, with punish combos. It just makes the damage that much more tastier, right? Because you can just add a big chunk towards the beginning of your combo. So all the Hashogeki stuff is all very, very big buffs for Ryu. And the buffs aren't over yet. So for all the Hadokens, and also Shinku Hadoken, level 1 super, he has a very interesting buff in that the hurt box around his hands, specifically, has been reduced. So at bare minimum, say you're doing like the whole Fireball War thing. Since the hurt box on his hands are reduced, that means, you know, in earlier frames of the move, you won't get tagged, so you can still, at very least, clash. And ideally, you know, we're gonna have to math this out here with a lot of testing, a lot of labbing, but in like neutral situations where people are hitting buttons and they might tag your hands and trade or worse, you should be good to go as the hurt box is pulled back from the hands a bit. So basically, it just makes tossing your fireball, no matter how you do it, just better. And Ryu, well, he likes tossing those fireballs. So all in all, just good quality of life changes. Like, Ryu's doing pretty all right. Like, if you play Ryu, even if maybe these are not all the changes you would like, I gotta assume you are happy with them at the very least. So for Ken, there's a couple changes. There's like the change, but also just a couple small ones to note. The first one, jabs. You'll find this through several characters, so I'll probably mention this several times in the video. But stand light specifically, so on frames 2 through 6, so basically the beginning of the move, the hurt box is expanded. So basically, as he's beginning the attack through like the active frames, it's easier to tag his arm. So it's easier to kind of tag him out of the startup, or at very least trade with him when he's got the jab out there. And frames 7 through 8, so not the whole move, but in the middle part of the recovery, slightly decreased. Once again, this change, not a cool, sexy change, but throughout several characters, you'll find this. And like Luke, so kind of like your big aerial escape move here, EX Tatsu. So the landing recovery, if this move does not connect, repeat, does not connect, has been increased. So the time before you can block or do anything is increased. So if you're using it as like a get out of jail, jump out of the corner, just try to escape move. If it doesn't connect, big time added landing lag. So you'll probably get bopped on the other side. Now the big change is the throw. So throw, specifically in the corner, there is now distance created between the two characters. So before, he was basically just directly on top of you, even after the forward throw, right? And just to note, say you dash after the fact, he's still +1. He still has frame advantage, although slight, but he still has frame advantage over you if he dashes after a forward throw in the corner. But now it's just not as oppressive as it was before. Before, Ken throwing you in the corner was potentially the start of a game over sequence. And while it still certainly sucks, you know, he can still have advantage over you, it's not as oppressive as it was before. And since specifically after a forward dash, since he's only +1, which is still good, but it doesn't guarantee like a throw strike mix up anymore. So say Ed's knocked down here and he wakes up with a jab. So 4-framer, right? Sure. So in this situation here, if I dash and hit a button, I'm going to win because I'm +1. Sure. But if I go for my throw, because throws are 1 frame slower than the jab, if a throw and a strike in this game connect on the exact same frame, the strike will beat the throw, which is different than other Street Fighters, but whatever, right? So it doesn't give him like the super pressure it did before. Don't worry, Ken's still plenty good, y'all. A lot of these characters that you're going to see get nerfs, don't worry. They're still basically the best characters in the game. But it just takes the edge off just a little bit. Now, Zangief. If you've seen any one change before watching this video, this is probably going to be the change that you've seen. EX Lariat can now combo into his level 3 super. Natural combo. That's pretty dang cool, right? So it basically gives him a lot more reach with meter. As level 3s, even if they scale hard, they still scale pretty good, right? So you can get some very interesting damage. That's not the least of which, though. Well, I'll mention something else. So the travel on the EX Lariat specifically is just a little bit faster than it was before. And it just means certain things like jab, 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 EX Lariat, 4-hit combos, you see. Just certain combos are just going to be easier than they were before, just due to distance stuff. Just because it goes just a little bit further, just a little bit faster. So good quality of life change there. Now, for those of you wondering about the level 3 and wondering why would you want to do it in the super, right? Can't you do level 2 into level 1? And hey, yes you can. I'll show you an example. So here you use all 3 bars, right? And 3,295 damage. Sure. And I know it's not a lot of damage, but Zangief drive rush combos aren't always the most efficient. That's just how it is. Now, exact same combo route, but we're just going to go right into level 3, skip the rest. What are we going to get? Oh, mashing there, but that's how it's going to be. That's how it's going to be, right? So what are we going to wind up with here? So before we had 3,295, now we have 4,000 damage, right? So we burn 3 bars both ways, but because the minimum scaling on level 3 is always going to be better than it is on level 2 and level 1, that just means in situations where you have the 3 bars to burn in the combo, you're just going to do better. So his overall damage output in, you know, situations where you can get the hit confirm into the drive rush, and then, you know, you burn your meter, right? It's just going to be better overall. So that's just good quality of life. Also good quality of life. Although they don't say to the exact degree how far it's going, they say that the level 1 super, now the hitbox has been expanded downwards. Now, if you're anything like me, and you see like Twitter clips of like, you know, how bad the move is, hey, it's still not perfect as you can see here, right? But hopefully, ideally, there should be less whiff situations. So, this is going to be one of those time's going to tell kind of deals, but hopefully is better. Lariat, just being a little bit faster, gives you better hit confirms off certain strings and just pressure that you didn't have before. And obviously comboing to level 3 just gives you more damage that you didn't have before. So Zangief, doing pretty alright. For Chun-Li, not too much. Much like Ken, Stand Light Punch changed up a bit here. The hurt box around the arm between frames 2 through 8 has been expanded. So basically, while she's starting in the move and kind of into the beginning of the recovery, it's just a little easier to tap her hand. Not a big deal. The other change, also really not that big of a deal in the end, has to do with aerial lightning legs. So if you start a combo specifically with air lightning legs, the combo will now scale a bit more than it did before. So just to give an example here, if I jumped in with like any button here, did 2 lights. The third of the attacks here, the second light, is the one that begins with scaling, right? So you get 2 hits at 100, and the next hit drops to 80. The lightning legs in the air now advances the scaling by 1. So here, we're doing kind of low to the ground, right? We'll do punish counter so we can combo into it. And now, despite only 1 special move happening beforehand, the next hit, our scaling immediately goes to 80%. So it just means basically you're kind of 1 step ahead of the combo as far as damage scaling goes. Because, you know, getting people, you know, shimmy, you know, make them whiff the throw, then you hit them with this as like a punish counter and a full combo. I guess you feel you get just a little bit too much off of that. So now combos in situations like that will just get ever so slightly less damage. Like, it's still really good. You'll still get full combos on hit. You know, light legs specifically is still safe on block, right? So, like, it's still good. Once again, a lot of these nerfs, everything's still very good. But just a little bit of the edge taken off of. Now, my friends, I have some bad news for you. Funky Slicer is not as funky as it used to be. So Funky Slicer, that's back sway light. If you ever seen the match with Dee Jay, you know this move. So what happened here, it is a nerf. So specifically, if it's blocked, it does not push the enemy back as far as it used to. So basically, Dee Jay is going to be closer to the enemy on block than they were before. So that means, especially in situations where like sway, slicer, sway again, slicer again to catch them trying to stop you the first time, that means they might be able to tag you on your way out. Also, for the move, while it's in its recovery frames specifically, and it does have 20 recovery frames, the hurt box of like everything, I guess they don't really specify, the hurt box of Dee Jay is increased and expanded while you're in the recovery frames of this move. So I'm not quite a Dee Jay player, please forgive me, but I feel certain situations here where you hit with like the exact tip of the move. So basically, it should be able to just easier to like tag them and keep them honest. Now, some people with stubbier moves, maybe not, right? But that's the theory anyway. So it's a nerf to one of his most abusable moves, but hey, don't worry, Dee Jay's still one of the best characters in the game. Now for Manon. So for Manon, I feel this is almost like glorified bug fixes, but I'll mention it just because it's not specifically a bug fix. But for one, back medium kick here, the command normal, if you do it out of a drive rush specifically, you'll keep a bit more momentum versus like the no momentum you would keep before. So just a bit more valuable out of a drive rush. And the other thing is her level 2 super. So level 2 super, if you use this in combos, I know you've seen it drop out of a combo, and it's very frustrating. So say you're in a scenario now where like the opponent goes for like an obvious jump, and you know, okay, obvious jump, I'll snipe him out of the air. And the thing is, after you snipe the enemy out of the air, level 2, sometimes it connects. Sometimes it don't connect. Like if they're higher up in the air when you catch them, like the whole thing can drop. And you see, I whiffed the first hit, right? But this is where the change comes into play. So if the first or second hit connects, the effect type, the hit type is changed, meaning the rest, like say the third hit, will now connect easier, right? So there, I didn't get my first hit because they're a little too high up, but because the second hit connected, that means basically the third hit would connect. So it's not perfect, furthest thing from it, but it's better than it was before when it comes to the whiffing. Because sometimes you get one part and then everything else drops, but now if hit 1 or hit 2 connects, the third hit should connect, and they made a provision for that. So if the third hit somehow does not connect, the opponent's knockdown will be heavily increased, so they just don't wake up and get a full punish on you for correctly comboing them. So some work to be done just yet, I would say. Season 2, please save us, but better than nothing for sure. Okay, JP, one of the big villains of Street Fighter 6. Did he get nerfed? Yes. And some of these nerfs are what I would call significant, but once again, just like a lot of the other nerfs, don't get it wrong, he's still one of the best characters in the game. So let's talk with an easy one up here up first. Just Stand Heavy Punch. You know, this is the big boy button, right? So now, specifically his toes, his feet. So while he's doing the move, his foot hurt box is increased. So basically, it is easier to tap his toes while he's doing the move. Cool. And now, specifically during his recovery frames. So the recovery frames, after it's all said and done, the hurt box is out there much further than it was before. So basically, if he whiffs the move, it is just simply that much easier to whiff punish him after the fact. It's not free. You know, whiff punishing is an art. You gotta earn your whiff punishes, right? But it is now better than it was before because he's just simply easier to hit during his recovery frames. So if you see opponent JP just kind of swinging for the fences, don't be afraid to give him a love tap back. Now, in a case of color me surprise, this nerf I didn't know worked the way it did to begin with. So crouch heavy punch. That's kind of like, you know, the dedicated anti-air button. And don't worry, it's still pretty good at what it does, right? But what I didn't know before is apparently it had true blue, honest to God invincibility, upper body invincibility against air attacks. So say you play like, you know, Dragon Ball Fighters, crouch heavy, right? How it had like invulnerability against jumps. Like so did this. This was like actually somewhat invulnerable to jump attacks. Like his upper body specifically. So no wonder it was so good as an anti-air, right? So now there is no invincibility. It is just simply heavily above average hitbox. So once again, still really good. Will still snipe people out of the air. But now in certain situations, it might trade or actually lose if the timing's bad, because it doesn't have actual invincibility to back it up. Now, the reversal amnesia, and this is both for the regular and enhanced versions of the move. If amnesia itself starts a combo, that combo is going to be heavily scaled. So after the initial hits here, look at that. We now start at 50% scaling, no matter what. So you'll still get your full combos. Nothing has changed on that way. But your combos off amnesia are not going to hit as hard. The damage is going to be curtailed fairly heavily. Also, if you're doing a combo with amnesia, past the initial, like successfully getting the move off, you will gain no super meter for the move at all. Like the combo will generate you no super meter. So you'll get your damage heavily scaled, but that is it. And basically nothing else, because the reward is already super high for like what is effectively the best reversal in the game. So to show you an example, So no meter gained, and the damage was 1680. If I recall right, the damage before was like well into the 3000s. So the damage is certainly very heavily nerfed. And once again, no meter gained, right? So it still works as a counter. You still get all the opportunities, but less damage, no meter. So big nerf to it. Also, if for whatever reason, you're not comboing into it and the projectiles are at large, if you parry them, you actually get more reward than you used to before. So now I see them, I parry, and I just get more reward for it, for regular parry and for perfect parry. And the nerfs also are coming for departure. So that is where you set up the rifts and the projectiles come up. So one, say similar to Chun-Li, if the departure of the spike starts the combo, it'll now start at one stage advanced. So if you do whatever your next hit's going to be, it'll now start at 80% scaling instead of 100. So you're going to do less overall damage with any given combo if you start with the departure spikes. So it's still as useful as it was. The hitbox there, the timing's there, everything else is there. But if you start combos with it, it's not going to do as much damage. And just like Amnesia, if you parry the move, you will now gain more meter for parrying the move. So in situations where you're just under that like horrible onslaught against what JP does, parrying, which is what you got to do anyways for the most part, you're now going to be rewarded more for it. So defending against JP is just a little bit better because your drive gauge won't be hurting as bad as against Amnesia, against the departure spikes. Parrying just works a little bit better. Amnesia combos don't hurt as much. They don't gain him as much meter. And once again, despite all this, he's still going to be one of the better characters in the game. Don't confuse it for anything else. But JP is certainly nerfed. Going on to Rashid, like some of the other characters, we have that stand light change. So on frames 2 to 8, so effectively the startup of the move, the hurt box is increased. And frames 9 to 11, so basically kind of the ending point of the move, the hurt box is decreased. So basically it's easier to slap him out at the start of it, not so much the end. Pretty simple. The big change is EX spin. So EX spin, it says here on the third attack, what it means is basically like the third actual strike. Like say if the enemy was blocking here, the third strike is like where the rest of the move goes off. So on the third strike and up is now just full invincible to jumping attacks. So if someone's got a very obvious jump coming your way, it is now much easier to deal with it. So Rashid had difficulties just dealing with jumps with the EX move, right? Like you'd think on paper it should be pretty fantastic anti-air offense, but not so much. Now EX spin is much more, like incredibly more reliable as an actual anti-air move. According to the official frame data on the Buckler website, it's still invincible frames 1 through 8, and basically now third hit onwards, right? Frames 9 through 13, it's invincible to all air attacks. So that means there's not that weird situation where like if you do it just a bit too early, you'll get smacked out of the air like you would before. To lose now to a jump in, you'd have to kind of really screw it up. So it's just super much more viable against jump ins across the board. And for Aki, not too much. Once again, season 2, that'll be the big stuff. But nice for what it is. 1 stand medium punch now has 5 active frames. It used to only have 3 active frames. So now just using it, especially in say situations where you can meaty someone, like say you knock him down, right? So now it's just easier to have him hit situations where you can hit deep into the actual move itself. I'm sure we'll figure out setups in time, but almost doubling the active frames is certainly a very good buff to any move. So we can definitely make something with this work. Another nice quality of life change is Crouch Light Punch. The hitbox of Crouch Light Punch has been extended forward. So now things like Crouch Light Punch, Crouch Light Kick, Crouch Light Punch will work. Punishing Ken's Step Kick, which is supposed to be -4 frames point blank, is now something you can do, like barely. Like visually she doesn't connect, but thankfully the hurt box is buffed, so it is more out there, right? So, a basic jab's a pretty important tool no matter how you swing it, especially because their stand jab's a 5-framer, not a 4-framer. So just making that just extend just a little bit further than it did before, meaning you can get punishes that you couldn't get before. That's going to help out, especially against the more top-tier characters. So not gigantic changes for Aki, but certainly better than nothing, which is, what some of our other low-tier compatriots got. Honda and Lily, the hour of deliverance is at hand. We just gotta wait a little bit longer, guys. And that is the patch. Once again, it's not Season 2 exactly. We'll get there eventually. But for now, it'll get us by. It's the make-do patch. It's the buy time till Season 2 patch, effectively. Season 2 will start sometime before EVO. We don't got an exact date, but before EVO, I'm sure. It can't be after that, right? Like, that would be crazy, right? It has to be sometime when the Capcom Pro Tour starts up again. But anyways. So, good changes. Certainly could use more. I know we're all hoping for more. We'll get there eventually. But a lot of the changes that are here, at the very least, are very smart. And I'm quite happy with them. So we can use more, but we'll make do with what we got for now. And, well, I guess that's it for the video. So if you got any crazy things you want to talk about in the patch notes, feel free to post in the comments below. But otherwise, that is it for the video. So thank you very much for watching. Hope this video has found you well. And go out and play some Street Fighter.